Welcome back, everyone. Yesterday, I was at the Automation Guild Conference 2018's Roundtable Expert Q&A, and there we tried answering as many questions as we could, but we ran out of time, and there were still a lot of questions I saw later on in the Slack channel, and folks even asking if we can get those answered. I thought that I could go around and answer the remaining questions with, what my thoughts are on all of them. So I'll try to complete as many as I can. If it's more than we can do in one session, then I'll make multiple videos of it, but I'll try to go through all of them one by one. So here it goes. Few questions did it get answered during the conference, and for a few of them I did write brief responses in the Slack channel as well. So I'll skip those and I'll move on to the next ones which did not get answered at all. So let's see, the first question that I have here, from where I think things weren't answered. This is from Mark, and he says, the more I try to automate, the more I see that the real problem is to define the business with proper requirements. Could you share your experiences addressing teams to have better story definitions and proper refinement sessions? That's an interesting question. So the real problem with requirements definition and the way to document them and how to get test cases against those. Now, with time, the documentation side of software development has changed a lot, especially with the agile thing. Since when agile has become popular, I feel at some cases people tend to take that as an excuse not to even write the basic requirements of the product, and at times it's just really hard. There is no clue as to how the product is supposed to work. Instead of people ask person X, person Y, he's the expert, she's the expert, but there's no written documentation for anything. I fortunately come from a very different background in that respect. Before working in automation, I was working with embedded devices, IoT as they are known more famously today, and they had strict requirements for documentation, and we had detailed requirements, and then we even in some cases had requirement understanding documents, and then we prepared our test scenarios or test designs from there. That definitely made things easier. Not having proper requirements is really a pain, but on the other hand, so yes, we should have better requirements in my personal experience. As I said, in a different industry back in the days, in the embedded world, we had great requirements, and I hardly had this problem, even though we still used to say we have this problem. But now I realize that how fortunate we were, because we had a lot of requirements there. On the other hand, there is also the reason why we went into agile was we kept on pushing documents from one team to another, and documents used to converse. We use documents to converse with one another instead of humans interacting with one another, and that kind of spins the ball around. So instead of going to the heart of the issue, you end up beating around the bush for some time. So I think that's one of the reasons which contributed towards having lesser stress on documents, on writing down requirements. How to overcome that? The relationship or the work or the planning part of testing between the manual tester and the automation engineer, that's why it has to be really strong, because the automation folks can usually have a deeper insight, or they're more busy with scripting and getting the code in there. It's the manual testers who have an idea of what to test and how to test it. And that's why in many cases you might have seen and heard that it's common for manual testers or testers to give test cases to automation teams to execute. So that's kind of where you can compensate with having lesser requirements, but still I know I've seen that it really is a problem, and unfortunately getting requirements, in some cases teams are not that much comfortable with doing enough documentation, and they take it very passively. So I think that's the way around it. Have more collaboration with manual testers and sit with them and decide on what to test, and so that's how you get good test scenarios to automate. Also, I'd encourage, Richard Bradshaw was here in yesterday's sessions. Do have a look at the rapid software testing methodology of going about testing software. I think they're doing a really good job, and I do agree with a lot of things that they have to say about it. They would stress more so on going about asking questions about the documentation or the product itself, and then creating your own assessment as to how it's supposed to work, and then test that instead of depending on someone else to totally explain how it's supposed to work. So what they say is validate the requirements themselves, in a way, the way I understand it. So that's another angle of how you can look at it. So I think both ways, manual testers, and focus on definitely get as much documentation as you can, and sit with manual testers and try to get scenarios from them. And manual testers or testers should also challenge or question requirements, and they should go deeper into thinking about how to test the product. I hope that answers the question.